We're going to explain how to close a repetition loop in a workflow diagram. Workflow diagrams use loops to represent repetitive tasks or processes. Closing the loop correctly is crucial for clear and accurate representation of the workflow. There are several ways to visually indicate the end of a loop, and the best method depends on the specific type of loop and the diagramming tool you're using. Let's explore a few common approaches. 1. Using a terminator shape. Most diagramming tools include a terminator shape, often a rounded rectangle or an oval. This shape is typically used to mark the start and end of a process. In a loop, you would place a terminator shape at the point where the repetition concludes. Label this terminator clearly, perhaps with end loop or a similar descriptive phrase that reflects the loop's purpose. This clearly shows the workflow exits the repetitive process. 2. Connecting the loop back to the decision point. Repetition loops often involve a decision. A diamond shape represents a decision point within a workflow. The loop continues as long as the condition in the decision diamond is true. Once the condition becomes false, the flow should exit the loop. Visually, draw a line from the false branch of your decision diamond to a point in the diagram representing the continuation of the workflow outside the loop. This clearly illustrates how the loop terminates based on the decision. 3. Using a conditional connector. Some diagramming tools utilize conditional connectors, often arrows with specific labels like yes, no, or true, false. Connect the end of the loop's repetitive task back to the decision point using a conditional connector that reflects the condition for continuing the loop. If the condition is false, the connector's path will lead out of the loop, explicitly demonstrating the loop's closure when the condition is no longer met. 4. Explicitly numbering steps. In simple loops, numbering the steps can make the loop's termination more obvious. If your loop consists of steps 1 through 5, for example, step 6 could initiate a process outside the loop. By clearly numbering the steps, the completion and exiting of the loop becomes clear by the natural progression of numbering outside of the loop's bounds. 5. Combining methods. You can combine these methods for improved clarity. For instance, use a terminator shape and a conditional connector. This reinforcement helps eliminate any ambiguity about the loop's termination. If using a decision point, be sure to clearly label the branches, true, false, or yes, no, and where the flow goes after a false condition. Consistent labeling and clear visual separation are key. Remember, the ultimate goal is to make the end of the loop crystal clear to anyone reviewing the diagram, ensuring it accurately reflects the intended work.